Hi, good afternoon. I hope you all had a fantastic Coronation Bank Holiday weekend. I just wanted to touch base with you to talk about the Renters Reform Bill, which is eventually going to make its way into Parliament this week coming. This is a significant piece of legislation that's going to start to work its way through Parliament and will have a massive impact on the private rented sector here in England. A lot of people are asking us, look, what is it going to entail? In effect, there's about 8 key changes that are going to impact the private rented sector. It is a massive overhaul of the sector. If you're a landlord that operates your property well, maintains your property, has good relationships with your tenants, and you're a long-term investor, you really have nothing to fear from this. But the changes will take a little bit getting used to. So first off, the first thing that is going to go, and we've all been speaking about it, is the abolition of Section 21. So Section 21 has been dubbed no-fault evictions. It's not an eviction process, it's the notice to end the tenancy. Once the tenancy comes to the end of its fixed term and goes into periodic, you can serve a 2 months notice for the tenant to vacate. That's going to be gone. In place of that, we will look at, the government will look at beefing up various other sections to give more rights for landlords to get their properties back, to deal with nuisance tenants, to deal with arrears. So there's a whole swathe of changes that will come through to give landlords more rights, but they ultimately will not have the right to end the tenancy by serving that Section 21 notice. If they want to sell the property, they have grounds to do that. If the tenant doesn't pay the rent, they've grounds to do it. The Section 8 changes for arrears, as I mentioned, all that's going to change and they will be beefed up. The key part of this, which is going to be required in order to make this work, is the changes to the legal system. As all of us know, if you try to get possession through the courts at the moment, it can take a substantial period of time. We've seen cases where you are 8 to 12 months to try and get it. Here recently, we've know of a case where it's taking up to 4 months to get bailiffs to go to the property to enact a court order for an eviction. So the wide changing reforms they're looking through to get in the court system will be required, otherwise we're going to have a massive backlog. The second big change is the adoption of periodic tenancies as the norm. So currently we will let a property generally on a 12-month fixed term. The tenant may look to extend that at the end or go periodic, but there's flexibility there. But it gives a landlord certainty that their tenant will be in the property for a certain period of time, because obviously they've got costs of reletting. When they put a new tenant in, there's maybe some more additional maintenance, decoration work that's required. So they like the certainty of it. That will be gone. The tenant just has to give 2 months notice. Now, during the consultation period, it has been, we believe, accepted that the tenant can't give notice until after the first 4 months of the tenancy. So effectively a landlord is guaranteed a 6-month term, but that's it. The tenant then can stay or the tenant can vacate by giving the normal notice that they would require. We believe again that this process of periodic tenancies will not work for student properties. So if you're a student landlord or you operate in a student area, you really need that certainty of the 12-month term, and it's not going to work. We believe the government has accepted that, and tenancies will be student tenancies will be excluded from this periodic. The implementation of the periodic tenancies, there will be a minimum of 6 months notice. So it's not something that will come in straight away. We will have 6 months to adjust to it, and then all new tenancies from that date going forward will be on periodic. And there will be then a second implementation date where all existing tenancies will move to the same periodic basis, which is probably going to be about 18 months after the enactment of the legislation. There is going to be a doubling of the notice period for rental increases, for rent reviews and rental increases, which is going to go out to 2 months up from the 1 month. Rents, the level of rent reviews will effectively potentially go to a first tier tribunal at the tenant's request if they feel it's unjustified. Another big change is the introduction of the minimum housing standards. Now, most landlords who operate well and look after their properties, they want their tenants to be happy and safe in their properties, nothing to fear. This is an area which is adopted in social housing, and it's now coming across. And I have no issue with this. The decent home standard effectively is where renters must have access to clean, suitable and usable amenities. It's to be free from any major health and safety concerns, and that the landlords maintain, there goes the police, their property in a decent condition of repair. Additionally, the government will extend rent repayment orders to include repayment for substandard housing. Now that's, more please. That's a big thing. So if you don't maintain your house and your property, effectively the government can order you to repay all of the rent. So if you've got £1,000, £1,100, £1,300 a month property and you don't maintain the property, the government can force you to pay back maybe a year's rent to the tenant. So again, it's improving standards within the private rented sector. I have no issue with it, that is fine. This will tie in with the government's minimum energy efficiency standards, whereby they're looking to get all properties to an EPC grade of C by 2030. Now, we still haven't received any more clarity of when that's going to happen, how it's going to happen, what it's going to look like, so watch this space. Next big change is pets. There is going to be an area within the bill which will look to ensure that landlords do not unreasonably object when the tenant wants to bring a pet, and the tenant will have a right to appeal. Now, clearly, that will not work in certain leasehold properties where there are covenants that pets are not allowed in the property. But in normal houses where those covenants don't exist, there will be effectively pressure, but there will be a requirement for landlords to consider pets and have justifiable reasons if they don't. An amendment to the Tenant Fee Act will be that it will be reasonable to request that the tenant has adequate pet insurance to cover any accidental damage on the tenant. Next thing, it's something which has been there kind of over the last number of years, but now it's going to be enacted in legislation, will be a ban on renting to people with benefits. And you'll have seen that with various ads on Rightmove. Most of the portals are taking it down and have done over the last year or two. But basically the no DSS, that's going to be illegal, and I think that's fine. There also is a ban on where you prescribe that you won't rent to children, to families with children. So again, I don't have any particular issue with that. Finally, our second last will be the establishment of an ombudsman who will represent all private landlords. So all private landlords renting in England, regardless of whether they work with a letting agent or not, will be covered by a single government ombudsman whose membership will be required. The ombudsman will have the authority to put things right for tenants, including ordering landlords to apologise, provide details, take corrective measures and pay up to £25,000 in damages. And again, the rent repayment orders, pay back the rent, that's part of what's going to be in their toolkit. And finally, there's the creation of a property portal. So this is kind of a one-stop shop where landlords will have to have all the details of their property on the portal. It's a single front door, they call it, where you can look to make sure the property is compliant. Gas safety cert, EPC, electrical condition reports, etc. So again, useful for the tenants to be able to see that the property is fully compliant. So they're the kind of changes we're going to see coming through this week, or being announced to go through its parliamentary journey. As I said at the outset, landlords who operate their properties well and operate them as businesses have really nothing to fear, because they want good quality tenants. They want their tenants to be happy in the property. They want their tenants to stay in the property. And as I say, the Renters Reform Bill really has nothing to fear. It'll take a little bit of getting used to the changes that will come through. But really, it's about driving standards within the private rented sector, which I think all of us who work in that sector will be happy to see that happen. So stay tuned. Once we get a little bit more flesh in the bone when it goes into Parliament, we will give you an update here on our video, on our YouTube channel and on Facebook. That's Brian Lanahan from Belvoir. Thank you.